What are the best offenses in the NFL heading into the 2025 season? Well, I've already ranked quarterbacks, running backs, tight ends, wide receivers, and offensive lines. But now I'll be looking at how all of those position groups come together, including coaching, including scheme, to make an entire offensive unit. I'll be putting all 32 NFL teams, which you can see on your screen now, into tiers and be ranking them within those tiers to give us a comprehensive 1 to 32 ranking. At the end of the video, we will have a top 10 offenses, and we'll also have a bottom 5 offenses, so stick around to the end of the video to see where the final rankings are. The tiers themselves are pretty self-explanatory, but nevertheless I will go over them for you. At the top we have elite. These are the best offenses in the NFL. It is likely, but not guaranteed, that they have an elite quarterback, elite weapons, elite coaching, etc., or simply very few, if any, real weaknesses. The next tier down, we have the great tier. These are still very strong offenses, but just simply not as strong as the elite offenses. Maybe a great quarterback, but a bad offensive line, for example, or subpar weapons. The next tier down, we have good. These are offenses who are fine. They're good for the most part. Nothing which particularly blows you away, though. On the next tier down, the second last tier, we have the concerning tier. These are offenses which have some holes at very key positions, and generally I feel worse about them than I feel good about them. And at the bottom, last and least, we have the bad tier. These are the worst offenses in the NFL, usually a bad quarterback situation with poor coaching, not great weapons, the worst of the worst. Before I get into the actual rankings now, make sure you subscribe for more NFL content. Most of you watching are not subscribed, so I'd really appreciate it if you did that. Leave a like to show you like the video, and also leave a comment. Do you agree or disagree with anything I'm about to rank? Let me know in the comments. Are some teams too high, some teams too low? I want to hear them all. I read every comment, so let me know down below. But without further ado, let's get into it, and it feels fitting to start with the Philadelphia Eagles, the reigning Super Bowl champs. Arguably the strongest roster overall in the NFL, but we are only ranking offenses here for today. Their offense, I think, starts from the ground up with their offensive line. It is the best in the league. The talent they have on the offensive line position, from left tackle to right tackle, is absolutely wild. They got Lane Johnson, the best offensive tackle in the league, I think, and then him and Jordan Mailata, the other offensive tackle, make for, in my opinion, the strongest offensive tackle duo in the NFL. They've got Landon Dickerson and Cam Jurgens. They are proven interior offensive line guys, and with Jeff Stoutland, the only real question mark on that offensive line is Tyler Steen, and I trust the depth, I trust the coaching there. The offensive line is really kind of the basis on which I feel like the entire offense is built on, really. And the same goes for the defense with the defensive line. The weapons the Eagles have as well are elite. Saquon Barkley at running back, he's coming off an Offensive Player of the Year season, and rightly so. We might naturally see some regression from Saquon Barkley. To put up those kind of numbers in back-to-back seasons is just kind of insane, but I don't think that means that the offense is going to be worse. I just think it's natural to not really put up bonkers numbers year after year, but he is an elite talent behind an elite offensive line, so I do trust that he is definitely going to produce at a very high level. Then the wide receivers, obviously A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, arguably, well, I'd say I put them behind T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, but definitely one of the top wide receiver duos in the league. A.J. Brown is an elite wide receiver, big-bodied, deep threat who can break tackles and can make hard catches and can also kind of separate at all three levels of the field. He is a true wide receiver one, but then you pair him with Devonta Smith, who is a great wide receiver in his own right, quietly had 3 back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons over the last 3 years. He's got unbelievable hands. He's a fantastic wide receiver too. Then you got Dallas Goedert at tight end, Jahan Dotson is a wide receiver 3. Eagles are brimming with talent at every single position you look offensively. And then we have Jalen Hurts. Now, I have recently got quite a bit of backlash, we'll say, for saying that Jalen Hurts is overrated. And I want to stress, for the record, officially, Eagles fans, listen, okay? I think Jalen Hurts last year was a top 10 quarterback, and he can play obviously at that level. Again, that was not a flash in the pan. That is definitely within Jalen Hurts' range of outcomes on any given season. His rushing threat is great. He's developed a lot as a passer in the last few years. He is absolutely a good quarterback. It just is a case, I think, that the offensive talent generally around him is the real star of the show, not Jalen Hurts. He gets to be the quarterback. He understandably gets loads of praise and Super Bowl MVP, all that good stuff, and that's deserved. But I don't think that it is Hurts putting the team on his back just because he doesn't need to. The talent is so good. And that's not a knock on Hurts. It's just to say that we haven't seen Hurts have to do that like we have Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Lamar, for example, who, of course, have had good teams, have had good offenses. We'll talk about them anyway. But I just think for Hurts, that is more so the case. I think the Eagles are very clearly elite. They'll be our first team in there. Will they be the number one team at the end? We will see. The Detroit Lions. I think this team is primed for regression offensively and as a team generally. They lost Ben Johnson. I said coaching was going to come into this, and losing Ben Johnson, in the same way that it will be gaining Ben Johnson for the Bears, losing Ben Johnson for the Lions is absolutely massive. He was the best offensive coordinator the last 2 years. He turned Jared Goff into genuinely a decent quarterback. They were comfortably the highest scoring offense in the league last year, 33 points. The second highest team was at 30. So they are comfortably the highest scoring. They lost key offensive line pieces. They lost Frank Ragnow, he retired, one of the best offensive linemen in the game. And they lost Kevin Zeitler, less good, but still notable, to free agency. They're now relying on those two missing spots by putting in Christian Mahogany, who was a 6th rounder last year, and Tate Ratledge, who's a 2nd rounder this year. Even if those two guys are good, which they definitely could be, young offensive linemen do tend to struggle. Mahogany hasn't started, and nor has Ratledge, so we can say they're both kind of rookies in that regard. Even if they kind of play as well as they could be expected to, they are simply never going to be able to hold even a candle to Kevin Zeitler, let alone Frank Ragnow. So I just think the offensive line is definitely going to take a step back. And it's not to say those players are going to be bad, but I just think they just can't be as good as the players they've lost. Jared Goff, I personally underrated Jared Goff. I said it in my underrated video. I think he's genuinely a good quarterback these days, plays mistake-free football, keeps the offense on time. Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jamison Williams are brilliant weapons. Amon-Ra is the best slot receiver in the league, I would say. Jamison Williams, the speeds that he's emerged, I think he's going to look even better this year. They've got Sam Laporta, they've got Jahmyr Gibbs, they've got Dave Montgomery. They have loads of talent weapons-wise, loads of talent. Elite weapons, I would say overall, some of the best in the league. And it's an incredibly diverse range of skill sets. You've got the Montgomery and Gibbs kind of sit like scalpel and hammer. You've got the Laporta as the big body. You've got Jamison Williams as the speedster. But I think that losing Ben Johnson will ultimately result in decent offensive regression, like significant offensive regression. And if the offensive line is as bad as I fear, that could undermine the entire offense. Jared Goff is not a mobile quarterback. He's not a quarterback that does well with interior pressure. If that starts to leak in, it will be like a hole in the Titanic. Like that will bring the entire thing down. People think the Lions offense is unsinkable. I don't think it is anymore, frankly. And we can trust Dan Campbell. I absolutely think that the weapons they have are elite. So that counts for a lot. But I kind of feel like I can only put them in good for now. And I'm happy to prove them wrong. If it's mid-season and I'm wrong, I'll happily admit that. But I think I can only put them in good for now. And it's the weapons that are saving them from being concerning. Mm-hmm. The Baltimore Ravens, one of the best offenses in the league last year with a bullet. When you have Lamar Jackson, a true one-of-one at quarterback, you're just going to be in the elite tier inherently. You'll see a theme, apart from maybe with the Eagles, that the elite offenses have elite quarterbacks. Lamar Jackson is the best dual threat quarterback ever in my books. Just the way he plays the game, he is literally untouchable. At the NFL level, to be untouchable in college is one thing. To be untouchable in the NFL, where every athlete is the best athlete at that school, at that position, is... people don't talk about it enough, genuinely. Like, every defender that plays against the Ravens, from defensive line to safety, is shaking at the thought of Lamar Jackson taking off and using his legs and breaking out the pocket. And what that means is that defenses can't rush him pass it properly. He's massively developed as a passer, a bit like Jalen Hurts has, which has elevated his game to the next level. His rushing threat has always translated to the league, but he's so good at avoiding hits, using that when he needs to. And he fits so well, Lamar fits so well within the Ravens' general offensive identity, which is, run-first, hard-nosed team who, yes, do prioritize the run game, but then also have the most electric change-up in the league in Lamar Jackson at quarterback. And what I love about the Ravens is that they're so unique offensively. They'll come out in 22 personnel, 2 running backs, 2 tight ends, with Derrick Henry and Patrick Ricard at fullback, and then Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely at tight end, which screams run, lots of heavy people on the field, and then they'll pass from that formation. Or they can run, they can kind of do anything from any formation because of the personnel they have and how good they are. Wide receivers are a little bit lacking. Can the receivers uphold their end of the bargain if Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson are It's hard. Rashad Bateman, DeAndre Hopkins, and Zay Flowers. There's no wide receiver one there. I do love Zay Flowers, but he's definitely not a one. The offense doesn't really demand a wide receiver one, so it's not the end of the world. It's probably the only knock I can find. I'm being a bit pernickety, but ultimately it's great coaching from Todd Monken and John Harbaugh. I think the Ravens are also comfortably elite, and I would argue, because of the quarterback situation, more so than the Eagles. The Texans. I'll start with what I like. I'm a Texans fan, so let me have my moment. I love CJ Stroud. I think he can be a top 7 quarterback on his day. Showed that in his rookie year, one of the best deep ball passers in the league already. I love the wide receivers. I think Nico Collins is in the elite tier of wide receiver, up there with Chase, Jefferson, AJ Brown, the likes. He's a big-bodied wide receiver who can separate really well. Yes, we lost Tank Diggs. Yes, we lost Tank Dell. Yes, we lost Stephon Diggs. But we replaced them with Jaden Higgins, who is my wide receiver 3 in the draft, and Jalen Knoll, who is my wide receiver 5 in the draft. Higgins, in my mind, is that Nico Collins light kind of player, which is great because he's playing with Nico Collins, but also because it means that you could put Jaden Higgins on the line of scrimmage as the X wide receiver and then have Nico as the Z, be off the line of scrimmage. He can't be pressed as easily when you're off the line of scrimmage. He can be in motion, frees him up massively. And then Jalen Knoll is the deep threat speedster, or deep threat from the slot, rather. And he's so good at that, and CJ will be targeting him to no end. Nick Chubb at running back. Who doesn't love Nick Chubb, right? One of the best guys in the league, I think. We all love Nick Chubb. Mixon's unhealthy at the moment, but him and Mixon, that's a good running backfield. Also with Woody Marks and Damian Pierce. Running back room is fine. Not great, but fine. And then we've got our new offensive coordinator, and Nick Caley. He's a McVay coaching tree guy. Big upgrade to Slowick, I think, already. What I don't like, though, and what I'm really scared about here, is the offensive line. I said in my offensive line rankings, I think the Texans have the worst, or will have the worst offensive line in the league, and CJ Stroud is a pocket passing quarterback. If you don't have a pocket to pass from, you're not going to be a very good pocket passing quarterback. And I just think that we were the 7th worst offensive line last year in terms of pressures allowed at 209. We allowed the highest rate of sacks at 40. And 4/5 of our offensive line were not good last year. And guess what? We got rid of the 1/5 that was good in Laramie Tunsil. I think Arion Ursary, our rookie offensive tackle, will play, and he will likely struggle. I would love to put them in great, the Texans offense, because I do think the weapons are great and I think the quarterback is great. But I can't, because there is an offensive line sized hole there. And it's quite fitting, I think, that they go with the Lions. I think they are kind of next. I think they will stay next to each other in my rankings here, because I have offensive line questions about a pocket passing quarterback. It's only fair. That's how you know, Lions fans, I'm not treating you unfairly. Cleveland Browns. It's bad. Let's call a spade here. Their quarterback situation is not good. When you've got 4 quarterbacks on the roster, you really have 0. At the moment, I think Dylan Gabriel will be the starter, with Joe Flacco as the backup, Shadur Sanders as the 3rd option quarterback. Rumours they're trying to trade him. Who knows? And then Kenny Pickett as surplus to requirements, I imagine. Not exactly an iron sharpens iron kind of quarterback room, right? Yeah, competition breeds excellence, but not when the level of competition is bad. Gabriel, I think, offers you the most. He's young, he's cheap, he can be a point-and-shoot quarterback in the Kevin Stefanski offensive system, but I think his ceiling is pretty low. The wide receivers, I don't love Jerry Jeudy, I don't love Cedric Tillman. I think they could both be good and could both be better than I expect. But if the quarterback play is spotty, I'm not sure. The running backs, Jerome Ford is currently not healthy. Quinshon Judkins is currently not signed because of his legal troubles. That's concerning, to say the least. I think Judkins will play this year, pretty obviously. And when he does, I think he'll be good, but not a great way to start the year by missing rookie minicamp and by missing training camp. The offensive line is bad. It was great in 2015. Well, not 2015, probably closer to 2019, 2018. That was 5-6 years ago now. They're old and on the downturn. David Njoku at tight end is good, but good grief, he's not enough to do it by himself. I like the coaching in Kevin Stefanski as well, but he's kind of circling the drain here. And Tommy Rees, the offensive coordinator, was coaching in college until last year. So I think it's pretty comfortable that the Cleveland Browns are going to be a bad offense this year. I think it's pretty easy to say that. The Chicago Bears, off-season winners, or Caleb Williams is looking awful 2.0. You're getting both kind of narratives flung at you at the moment this offseason, and I've seen both. However, though, on paper, huge improvements have been made. And at the moment, 4th of August, we've not played a competitive snap of football apart from the Hall of Fame game. Coaching, like I said, I took it off the Lions. I'm going to give it to the Bears. Ben Johnson is the biggest acquisition, player or non-player, of this offseason, I would argue. He's an elite offensive mind. He's creative, he's inspiring, and he's tough. Importantly, he's going to whip this Bears offense into shape. They desperately need it. They were a messy team on and off the field last year. They were taking sacks on fourth down in the fourth quarter. Caleb Williams, no coaching there required. Couldn't get lined up in preseason, took them off. That's what this team needs, is an iron fist, basically, a bit of discipline put into them. And I think that gives them an immediate floor offensively. 3/5 of the offensive line are new, with free agent additions, interior, right guard, left guard, center. Ozzy Trapillo is apparently getting reps with the ones, so it might be 4/5 of the offensive line are new. But it's important because, first of all, the offensive line last year was bad in Chicago, and second of all, because Ben Johnson's offense and offensive system requires a good offensive line. And it's heavy on the run game, it's heavy on play action. You need guys that can block for a good amount of time in that system, and I think they now have that, which is really important. Weapons, obviously great, been the narrative of the offseason. DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Colston Loveland, he'll be in that Laporta role. He's going to be great this year. And then, yes, at quarterback, it's all on Caleb Williams now, I think it's fair to say. He was terrible last year, making no excuses for that, held onto the ball for way too long, wasn't trusting his eyes, wasn't trusting his feet. He needs to get that trust back in his game, frankly. And with the offensive line upholding its side of the bargain and blocking for long enough, which was a problem last year, with the wide receivers, with the better coaching, I expect that will happen. Yes, there's still questions and it is a relative unknown, but I trust the tape around what I saw from Caleb Williams. I trust my evaluation, and I think at times he looked okay, at the beginning of the season, that is. So I am going to put the Chicago Bears offense in great, because I feel like even if you don't get college-level Caleb Williams, you're going to have a good offense, just with the weapons and offensive line and coaching alone. The Cardinals, a very wide range of outcomes for this team. If Kyler Murray plays well consistently, which he's shown he can play very well, for example, week 2 against the Rams, and not turn the ball over and use his legs a bit more freely to pick up the extra yards and be that kind of spark plug quarterback, if he's on the same page chemistry-wise as Marvin Harrison Jr., who put on more weight to bulk up, could be better at breaking tackles, could be better at winning deeper down the field, being more physical. If Trey Benson can be an effective counterpunch to the established James Conner, then the Cardinals could be a great offense. They absolutely could be. They have a good offensive line. I like their coaching. I think Trey McBride could be an elite an elite tight end this year. There's a lot to like. However, if those things don't happen or don't happen consistently, then the Cardinals are going to be mid again. I don't think they're going to be bad. They're too talented a team to do that. It's just about their consistency as a team, really. And it's just about them not living up to their potential if they are inconsistent. So I think I'm going to go more positively on their range of outcomes here, the Cardinals, because I am a Kyler Murray truther. I'm going to put them at the back end of great. That's what I could see them being, at the back end of great, but I could also see them being at the bottom of good. So like I said, I'm going to go more positive here, bit of projection, but I feel good about it. The 49ers, positive regression alone would guarantee that this team is in the great tier, I would argue. And I think that 2025 for this team will look very different. The injuries in 2024, Christian McCaffrey missed 12 games, Elijah Mitchell missed the whole season, Brandon Ayuk missed 10 games, Ricky Pearsall missed 6 games, George Kittle missed 3 games. The Shanahan-Purdy combo elite, a combo alone, I think brings a very high floor to this team. Good quarterback, great head coach. And Shanahan is one of the best and most long-tenured offensive minds in the league. Brock Purdy is a quarterback that I personally have underrated for many years. He now in San Francisco is the system. He is what has allowed Shanahan to completely kind of go away from his traditional Shanahan offensive system, because Purdy's a good enough quarterback whereby he doesn't have to be entirely propped up by the scheme. Does the scheme help him? Of course it does. But it is more a symbiotic, mutual relationship rather than the scheme propping up Brock Purdy or the other way around. Those two, with the weapons that I already mentioned, back healthy and they're back in business. Christian McCaffrey is always going to be a concern. Such a dynamic player, one of the most electric players I've ever seen take step on the field, really. And there is going to be a concern, I think, with his injuries and how he's going to come back from that, and if it's kind of made him lose a step. I think he will naturally be on a slightly reduced workload from a few years ago where he was never off the field. They've got Ayuk back, or they're getting Ayuk back. They're getting Pearsall back healthy immediately. He obviously missed the start of last season as well. Juwan Jennings, so I love Ayuk, Pearsall, and Jennings as the trio. George Kittle is the tight end, is the tight end one in the league for me. When I look at it, coaching, weapons, quarterback, tick, tick, tick. Elite, I think. Elite. Now, it is a question of more or less than the Eagles. I'm going to put them behind the Eagles. Oh, but Shanahan has the mind, though. And I'm going to stake a claim. I'm going to say with the Shanahan mind and the healthy weapons, I think it's going to be better than the Eagles this year, which is quite the shout. But that's how good the 49ers are. The Titans, 2025 is probably not going to be the Titans' year, right? But that isn't to say, and they're going to go in the bad tier to spoil it. Let's put the Titans in there now. But they're not going to be bad in the way that the Browns are bad, if that makes sense. The Titans have hope. They have Cam Ward, the right choice at quarterback, big game hunting quarterback. Yes, he will put you in a hole, potentially with his aggressive style of passing, but he will also be able to dig you out of that hole if needs be. He's that quarterback that, when you're down a score in the fourth quarter, 2 minutes to go, he can put together a drive and win you the game. He is also a rookie quarterback who will make mistakes and is already prone to turning the ball over anyway. So I think it's going to take Cam Ward a year to really kind of settle in and try and rein in that part of his game. The offensive line is much improved this year simply by getting rid of Nicolas Petit-Frere, who is absolutely awful, but it's still only average, I would say. The running backs, Pollard and Spears, underrated but not game-changing, I would say. Wide receivers is where I'm not sold. Van Jefferson, I think, is just not a starting caliber wide receiver in the league. Calvin Ridley runs too hot and cold for me to really back him as a proper wide receiver one. And Tyler Lockett is past it, right? Has been for the last 2 years, really. It's the young wide receivers that I'm intrigued by. It is Elikai Manor, it is Kamira Dyke, and it is Xavier Restrepo. I think, though, that because of how last season ended and because it kind of is the do or die a little bit for Brian Callahan as even just a second-year head coach, that I am worried that the rookie wide receivers aren't really going to be given their chance to shine because they don't want to risk losing games, because I think Callahan could be fired if this season goes badly. So when you have a head coach already playing for their job, you can kind of make some bad coaching decisions. I like the young players. I don't love the situation around them. That's why they're in the bad tier. The Colts, they've got a quarterback problem, which caps them, which is a shame because I think the rest of the offense is looking really great. The wide receivers are so deep and so talented and really diverse. You've got Michael Pittman as that wide receiver 1.5, that big-bodied underneath guy. You've got Josh Downs as the incredibly underrated, shifty slot receiver. Alec Pierce as the deep threat. And then you've got A.D. Mitchell as that potentially electric Z wide receiver who has shown unbelievable flashes but also needs quite a bit of work to still put it all together. You've got Tyler Warren now at tight end, who's my tight end one, that kind of Brock Bowers-esque kind of receiving tight end threat, I think. The offensive line is really solid. And then at running back, you've got Jonathan Taylor, who has shown to be a really good running back year after year. Coaching, I like Shane Steichen. I like him as an offensive-minded head coach, but it's the quarterback issues. It's Anthony Richardson versus Daniel Jones in what you could perceive to be a race to the bottom, really. Neither one of them have, at the time of recording this, won the starting job, which is now getting late. We're now in August, and there's not been an announcement about the starting quarterback. That's not good, because that means that neither is looking better than the other one. Anthony Richardson has unbelievable high highs. Rocket for an arm, game-changing rushing threat. He can hit a deep ball and just flip the field immediately or just score, just outright score. Like, some of the deep balls that he's thrown are some of the best deep balls I've ever seen. Like, they are absolutely wild. He can do amazing things on the football field, but he also can't hit a slant if his life depended on it. And that is a problem for an offense when 90% of your throws are going, if not higher, are going to be the slants, the hitches, the 10-yard, the 10-yard outs, whatever it might be. That's a problem. Then you've got Daniel Jones, who has, yes, a much lower ceiling, but also, I would argue, a higher floor, frankly. He's not going to set the world alight, but he will be able to keep the offense on time somewhat. He can at least. Now, he can't hit a deep ball to save his life, but he can throw a slant. If you could combine Richardson and Daniel Jones, you got a top 5 quarterback on your hands. However, they both have big flaws to their game. I do think, though, that Daniel Jones is the better fit because I just think he'll be able to keep the offense on time. And they can use him as a rushing threat as well. And I do think that Daniel Jones could have a bit of a breakout year or resurgence year. But I've also got to be realistic and think that that's not that likely compared to him just not being very good again. So it has to go in concerning. It just has to. The Patriots. Drake May breakout year is upon us. He has shown unreal flashes, I think, last year as a potential franchise quarterback. His playmaking ability both in and out of structure was clear to see. And he was showing that ability while having terrible wide receivers, awful coaching, and a bad offensive line. That has all changed. The offensive line, they've added Will Campbell, Garrett Bradbury, Morgan Moses. You can argue about the ceiling of those guys, absolutely. I think you cannot argue about the floor they bring, though. And really, the offensive line is just about floor. Can you not get your quarterback killed? Tick. Wide receiver. They added Stephon Diggs. He might not be the dynamic wide receiver one that he has been previously, but I think he's still going to be a reliable separator. And they also brought in Kyle Williams, who was my wide receiver 4 in the draft. I think Kyle Williams sneakily could become a wide receiver 1 on that team. He's a good separator, great with the ball in his hands. He's good deep down the field too. And then at running back, they added Travion Henderson, my RB3. Electric home run threat ability from Henderson. He can score anywhere on the field at any time, both as a rusher on the ground and in the air as a receiver. He's also elite in pass protection, so I love that. And the new coaching regime, Mike Vrabel as head coach. They've got Josh McDaniels back as offensive coordinator. Yes, he was an awful head coach, but as an offensive coordinator, I actually kind of like it. It means he's not going to get poached for a head coaching role next year and have to start all over again. He knows what he's doing. I've tried to temper myself with how high I am on the Patriots. But this is my goddamn video. So no, I think they're going to be better offensively than the Lions and the Texans. At me. Steelers. I am not feeling confident about the 2025 Steelers. Rodgers on the field, his arm talent and arm strength, I think, has definitely taken a step back now. He is in his 40s after all. The ball placement in particular, though, which is a USP of Rodgers throughout his time as being a quarterback in the NFL, is simply just not what it was. It has been elite. It's just no longer that level. He's missing open throws, which he was never missing before. Garrett Wilson in the back of the end zone against the Seahawks, for example. Also, off the field, he's a coach killer. I don't like what he brings to the locker room. I know that the Steelers are great at managing personalities like that, but nevertheless, that is the case. He's always on the Pat McAfee show, always complaining to the media. I know that the Steelers can deal with that internally, but how is that going to work with the coaching staff? They've never really had it from a quarterback, and they've also never had it from a quarterback that is only guaranteed really to be there for 1 year. And that's what I find is going to be the tension with the Steelers offensively, is that you've got Mike Tomlin, who people are calling for his job, and I think kind of understandably, you need to actually do something if you get to the playoffs. You got Mike Tomlin there as head coach, who's kind of on the hot seat, and then you've got Arthur Smith as well. These guys are looking to keep their job. They're not going to give the keys to the offense over to Aaron Rodgers, who's a 1-year ringer and who might not even be the answer for that year anyway. So I think there's going to be some tension there between the coaching staff and the quarterback, which we might not be privy to, but I can kind of, knowing Rodgers, you can kind of foresee, I would argue. And I can see clashes. And I don't know how Arthur Smith and Aaron Rodgers gel offensively either, with how they like to play quarterback and how they like to play their offense. The wide receivers, DK Metcalf is the only real threat, and he's a bit one-dimensional as a kind of purely vertical receiver. The offensive line, Broderick Jones is looking like a bust. Troy Fautanu, who's in his rookie year, essentially, he's probably going to struggle. Zach Fraser looks good, but could very easily go the other way. That's kind of 3/5 the offensive line that I have a question about, which, with a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, could be a recipe for disaster. Running back, I think Caleb Johnson is going to be brilliant in an outside zone heavy system. But beyond that, I just don't really see how this very mismatched puzzle all fits together. And I think it honestly results in a bad on-field offensive product, if I'm being honest with myself and you guys. The defense will pull through, though. The Steelers will be a lot better team than a bad team because of the defense. The Vikings. The offense can only go as far as JJ McCarthy can take it, really. It's a very similar situation, I think, to Caleb Williams in Chicago. The offensive line was great last year and has been bolstered this offseason pretty heavily, which is brilliant. It means you can rule out any offensive line concerns, at least at this point. The weapons are elite. Justin Jefferson, the best wide receiver in the league, immediately elite there. Then you've also got Jordan Addison and TJ Hockenson as a trio, one of the best trios in the league. Coaching, Kevin O'Connell is one of the best offensive-minded head coach in the NFL currently, with a bullet. At running back, Aaron Jones, he's good, a bit of an afterthought. It is kind of a pass-first offense. And that really is the concern here, is that it is a pass-heavy offense. Sam Darnold was successful because he was able to shoulder that load. He was able to let it fly at times and be aggressive down the field. He had 585 passing attempts last year. JJ McCarthy in college had a high of 333. In Michigan, it was about the run and about the defense. Can McCarthy shoulder that himself? I don't know, man. If you're asking a rookie to throw for like 4,500 yards, which is what Darnold did last year, I know he's not actually a rookie, but in his first year, that's a big ask. That's a really, really big ask, I think. I'm happy to be proven wrong here. It's not a quarterback problem at all. It's just a quarterback question, I would say. So I will put them. We'll put them at the kind of the top end of good, I think, because I think everything else about them is honestly great. It's just JJ McCarthy. The Falcons, very similar to the Vikings, that is, because really the only question about the Falcons is Michael Penix at quarterback. At wide receiver, they got Drake London, a wide receiver 1, clearly in my books, top 10 guy. Darnell Mooney is an incredibly underrated wide receiver 2. They got Bijan Robinson at running back. Yes, it is Bijan, not Bijan. He is just that do-it-all RB1, bell cow if you need him to be. But you also have Tyler Algier as a nice little kind of red zone change-up, if you will, short yardage kind of guy. He's a great compliment. The offensive line is strong overall. Tight end, I wrote down Kyle Pitts here, but the propaganda is not going to work on me this year. I'm not going to believe in Kyle Pitts at tight end. But nevertheless, look, he could... I'm falling for it. He could do something. Let's just say that, right? And Michael Penix looked amazing against the Panthers in Week 18. But other than that, he did look a little bit spotty. You know, he had bad footwork, which led to bad accuracy. Yes, he can be this aggressive downfield passer. But there are some rookie... or we'll say now young quarterback teething problems, I think, which are quite inevitable. I think context is key here for the Falcons. Last year, Falcons fans, and indeed everyone else that watched any Falcons games, were very happy to see Michael Penix starting over the Kirk Cousins implosion, right? He could only really be the hero in that scenario. It was the season's in balance. Are you going to save us? Are you going to show us enough? And even if he didn't, they would have still given him the keys to the offense next year anyway. But he did. He showed enough not to get to the Falcons into the playoffs quite, but to be excited about Penix next year. I think, though, that if you then look at it from how you'd view it this year, which is Penix is going to be the full-time starter from week 1, I wonder how fans will see him then, if he's still having those kind of teething problems, making mistakes, making a few wayward throws, turning the ball over more often than you would like. I think it will very quickly turn from an exciting quarterback situation to, oh God, is he really the guy? And I think that is the lens which can shift pretty easily, I would say. And I feel far less confident about the Falcons as I do the Vikings or the Bears. And actually, I think I am going to put the Vikings at the back end of great, because I just love everything else apart from McCarthy. And McCarthy has shown enough, even in preseason, for it to be just okay. I think that would be enough to get you into the great tier. But Falcons at the back end of good, I would say. The Bills. Josh Allen at quarterback. You got an elite offense, right? I think no quarterback in the league does more for his offense week after week as like a one-man army than Josh Allen does for the Buffalo Bills. He went nuclear versus the Rams and the Lions last year towards the end of the season. In those two back-to-back games, he had over 700 passing yards, 5 passing touchdowns, 7 big-time throws, 5 rushing touchdowns, so 10 total touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 0 big-time throws. Josh Allen can change the game with a single run or with a single throw, unlike any other quarterback in the league, I would argue. The offensive line for the Bills is good enough. I would say it's not a strength, but it's also not a problem. The running back, James Cook, is a great compliment to Allen, who you kind of got to think is a pseudo running back, honestly. He's that kind of lighter scat back compliment. The weapons, Khalil Shakir, this wreck kind of derails a little bit. Khalil Shakir, who I do really like, is injured and is considered week to week with a high ankle sprain. Might take him some time to come back from that, and if he does, there's high risk of re-injury, so that is a little bit concerning. And then after that, it's Keon Coleman, who I don't love. It's Dalton Kincaid, who I'm not sold on. And it's Josh Palmer, who doesn't move me. So the weapons are definitely the whole, I would say. Not actively bad, but definitely not much better than that. And then at coaching, it's Joe Brady. I love Joe Brady as the offensive coordinator. He's my favorite offensive coordinator currently coaching. Definitely a head coaching candidate this year. He revolutionized the Bills' offense 2 years ago, introduced motion, just completely changed how Josh Allen and the offense played. And he was the offensive coordinator who took LSU to the Natty with Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. So he's great. So you got coaching, love it. You got Josh Allen, love it. A decent enough offensive line and running back. Yes, the weapons are pretty weak, but dare I say, is that enough to be elite? It's either the Bills at the back end of elite because the weapons are just nowhere near what the other weapons are, or at the top of great. They got Josh Allen, that edges it for me. The Raiders, they were an awful offense last year, awful, but I think it's entirely been upgraded. Quarterback, you've gone from, what's his name? Aiden O'Connell to Geno Smith. That's a top 10 quarterback right there. I've said it in my quarterback rankings. If you've got a issue, you can let me know in the comments, but I think Geno Smith is a top 10 quarterback. I've said it all offseason. He's got great arm talent. He's an aggressive downfield passer. He's experienced. He is an immediate floor and ceiling raiser of this offense. Then you've got Ashton Genty, one of the best running back talents we've seen coming out of college since Bijan Robinson, maybe even more so. Second best college football season in terms of rush yards ever. Broke PFF records for missed tackles forced and yards after contact. Elite running back prospect. The running game last year was terrible in Las Vegas. Immediate floor and ceiling raiser. Then you've got Chip Kelly and Pete Carroll. They're not here to build a dynasty. They're here to win now. And those two coaches, offensive coordinator and head coach respectively, can do so with those new weapons. Already there, you've got a good offensive line ready and waiting. You've got Brock Bowers, one of the best receiving threats from the tight end position we've ever seen, even as a rookie. You've got Jacoby Myers, 1,000 yards last year, very underrated. And you've got Jack Besh, a kind of do-it-all, get down and dirty, nasty kind of wide receiver who will just do whatever you need him to. He can block. He was a tight end. He can catch down the field. I love Jack Besh. I love the offense. I think it's going to be great. What doesn't the Las Vegas Raiders offense have now? Tell me that, genuinely. I'm putting it in great. If you've got a problem with it, you can go kick rocks. Is it, I prefer it to the Cardinals? Is it more so than the Bears? I honestly feel more confident about the Raiders than I do about the Ben Johnson thing just edges it for me, I think. I'll leave the Raiders there, but I do love the Raiders offense this year. The Panthers. Is Bryce Young truly back? That's the question here. I think so, but honestly, I'm scared to believe, having been burnt so badly last time. The offensive line, they're good on paper, but they played badly last year with bad quarterback play, so that's definitely possible. The wide receivers, last year, they were all right, but they've added Ted McMillan now, he's my wide receiver one in the draft, has that wide receiver one potential, great yards after the catch, threat ability, great at forcing missed tackles. I think he'll be a great weapon for Bryce Young. The running backs, Chuba Hubbard, he was at many points last season the only bright spot week after week. He had almost 1,200 rush yards. I like Dave Canales. I trust him still. I think he's had enough adversity already, really, but I'd like to see him now kind of only have positive things on his resume. But how good will Bryce Young be? We've seen him be one of the worst quarterbacks I've ever seen. And he was a really good quarterback prospect at Alabama, was able to create out of structure and in structure. He just did not look like that same quarterback, and I'm worried about that. Yes, he looked really good down the stretch, but it's half a season. And it was the first half was that bad that I've kind of got like PTSD from it. I can't really, in good conscience, go higher than good here. And I can't really put them higher than the Falcons, I don't think. So I think that's fair. The Bengals. The whole offense is carried by three players at two positions. Joe Burrow at quarterback and then Jamar Chase and T. Higgins at wide receiver. Joe Burrow, yes, is a step down in terms of tier from Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, but he is the clear QB4 in the league for me. He is an elite passer, maybe the best pure passer in the league, I would argue. Elite accuracy, elite processing ability, just so much aura around Joe Burrow. Jamar Chase is a top 3 wide receiver. It's Justin Jefferson, A.J. Brown, and him, in my books. T. Higgins is the best wide receiver 2 in the league. Those three alone are what can win the Bengals a game or games and will put up 25 points. And Chase Brown is a nice running back. After that, though, it is not good. It is not good. The tight ends are very uninspiring. Mike Gesicki, Joe All, Noah Fant. No one moves me there. Offensive line is not good, and it improved from last year. Orlando Brown Jr. at tackle, not sold. Who was it? Amarius Mims at the other tackle spot, not sold. There's just, and Dylan Fairchild at left guard could be a turnstile. Has this team ever had a good offensive line? For the love of God, please. Why can't they just have a decent one? It shows really that you need more than just a great quarterback and great wide receivers to be a great offense. I don't really think I can put them any higher than good. I think there might be a few offenses in this good tier. I think they're going to be better than the Patriots, maybe, but tough. The Chargers. They have a top 5 quarterback. If you can do your maths, that means he's my QB5. And Justin Herbert, at me. Again, you got an issue with that? Leave it in the comments. I'll fight you for it. They have an elite offensive tackle duo with Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt. That's getting your foot in the door immediately offensively. And they're a run-first coaching team with Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh. They've now got Omarion Hampton. They've added Mekhi Becton at right guard, the behemoth. That's decent, right? They've got Ladd McConkey, already one of the best slot receivers in the game, up there with Ross and Brown in my eyes. Trey Harris, nice addition. Please save us from Quinton Johnson. I've already seen him drop too many passes than I have care to mention in the preseason. And also shout out to Keandre Lambert-Smith. He's looking really good in camp and looked really good in the Hall of Fame game. He could be something to keep an eye on. Really, the name of the game in Los Angeles for the Chargers is a high floor offense that won't shoot itself in the foot like it has done previous years under the likes of Brandon Staley. I would like for them to unleash Justin Herbert a little bit more and be a little bit more pass happy, but that's not really in their DNA. And it's annoying when they've got the weapons, but in Ladd McConkey only, really. I'd like to see a bit more from the weapons as well, not named Ladd McConkey. They are a good offense as well, I would say. It's them and the Bengals at the higher end of that. The Texans and the Lions are falling here, guys. That is dangerous. The Cowboys. It's a good offense on paper, but I can't help but feel like with the Cowboys, they're just missing some panache, some X factor. Dak is a good quarterback. You're not going to catch me falling victim to the NFL meme pages saying that he's, overrated. I think he's overhated, frankly. Wide receivers, they've got CeeDee Lamb. He's a great wide receiver. They've got George Pickens. He's a great wide receiver too. And finally, that means that it's not just Pickens against it's not just CeeDee Lamb against the entire defense, which will help CeeDee Lamb. Offensive line, Tyler Guyton's not torn his ACL. It's only a bone fracture. Only a bone fracture. I still wouldn't want to go through that. So it's 4 to 6 weeks, not the season. Got Tyler Booker at right guard. The offensive line is always fairly solid in Dallas. Running backs, one of the worst running back rooms in the league, pretty comfortably for my money. They are clearly a good team on paper, right? And maybe there's just a bit too much recency bias with last season creeping in here. But I also can't help but feel that there is no X factor for the Cowboys, right? We know what Dak is. We know what CeeDee Lamb is. There is no Kevin O'Connell. There is no Shanahan. There is no McVay. There is no entire, like the Eagles, there is no entire team, which is great. And even looking at the ones in good, I just don't feel good about the Cowboys this year. They were 29th in offensive EPA per play last year. And yes, they obviously were missing Dak, but I don't love the coaching. It's Brian Schottenheimer or Caton Allen at offensive coordinator. There's no bump that I can give this team. Honestly, I have some real nagging doubts about the Cowboys, despite them being a talented football team on paper to a degree with Dak and CD. I worry that there's nothing else they can rely on there, really. And that is concerning to me. The Broncos. They are a very strong overall offense, despite some very interesting holes. The system is king in Denver, right? Bo Nix can operate the system well, avoids negative plays, avoids turnovers, avoids sacks. You want to see him grow so that he can become better within that system. But he was a perfectly fine quarterback last year. The offensive line, though, second best in the league behind only the Eagles for my money. That is why the system works. That is the engine room of the offense. They can run block incredibly well. They can pass block incredibly well. They were first in ESPN pass block win rate. They were the least pressures allowed per PFF with only 110. They're the unsung heroes. They're the MVPs of the offense. Because the weapons, I think, aren't great. Pat Bryant, Devon Vele, Marvin Mims, Cortland Sutton, Evan Ingram at tight end and wide receiver, J.K. Dobbins, Audric Estime, R.J. Harvey at running back. Those are subpar weapons, I think, objectively. Some of the worst weapons, I would argue, in the league. I'd say like a bottom 5 weapons unit, player for player. But it's about the system. It's about the coaching from Sean Payton. It's about Bo Nix doing what he needs to do. I think this team is solidly good, I would say. I'd put them kind of here. Because again, the Broncos as a team are incredibly strong. And the offense is good and the defense is elite. And that is enough to make a great team. The Chiefs. They are quite similar, dare I say, to the Broncos. They have Patrick Mahomes, best quarterback in the league. Don't care that he's, not lighting up like he used to. It's because defenses are doing everything they possibly can to make sure he doesn't do that to them. They got Patrick Mahomes as QB1 and they got Andy Reid. That's an elite head coach and quarterback pairing. Means a floor of a very damn good offense. The wide receivers, though, don't love them. Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice was good. But there's no wide receiver 1 there at all. I would even argue that Rashee Rice is better suited to a wide receiver 2 role, so not even a wide receiver 1.5. The running backs, don't love them either. Isaiah Pacheco, he's a nice 7th round pick, but are you going to pay him? No. So is he actually like a good running back, or is he just a good value running back? Kareem Hunt in 2025, that is jarring as hell. And then Brashard Smith. Yeah, he's got some juice. Fine, I like him. Tight ends. Travis Kelce, still dangerous. He can still get you, but clearly on the downturn, I would argue. And the offensive line, Josh Simmons, unsurprisingly, they've done, well, maybe a bit surprisingly, the Chiefs have done an Eagles, it seems, and have managed to nab an amazing player at the back end of the draft. But the offensive line is still not great on the whole. The offense on paper just really isn't that good, but with Mahomes and with Andy Reid, it's always going to be great. It's always going to be great. I feel better about, with just the known quantity at quarterback, with Mahomes, he's going to be the top end of great. The Jets, like the Titans, bad, but not in an unhopeful way. Unhopefully bad, if that makes sense. I love what this team could be in a year or two. Mostly because of the offensive line. They added 2 young draft prospects in back-to-back years in Olu Fashanu and Aman Membu. Wide receiver, they got Garrett Wilson. Top 10 wide receiver by my money. But after that, it's not looking good. Malachi Corley was a healthy scratch for most of last year. Josh Reynolds and Alan Lazard are potentially starting. That's quite grim. Quarterback, Justin Fields. Could he do something amazing? Yes, I hope so. I've always been a Justin Fields fan. Is he probably going to, though? No. Especially not as a passer. Yes, as a runner maybe, but as a passer almost definitely not. And then running back, you've also got kind of questions around Breece Hall. So it's just not going to happen this year for the Jets, right? Come back in a year, 2 years' time, and I think it will look a lot better. But they have to go in the bad tier. The Bucs. I'm a Baker Mayfield fan, as you can see. And they've got the deepest wide receiver room in the league. They've got Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Craig Booker, Jalen McMillan. And then you add on top of that, Bucky Irving. And then you add on top of that, a top 3 offensive line. They're going to be a great offense. They are going to be a great offense. You need Baker to not make the classic Baker mistakes too often. He's going to inevitably, but you can't have him kind of turning the ball over multiple times a game or risking that multiple times a game. And it's also a question of, can the Buccaneers continue their generational run at finding offensive coordinators, because they keep getting poached after 1 year. And I think they will probably do with Josh Grizzard, who was the passing game coordinator last year. So I don't feel too concerned about that, I would say. They were 4th in points per game last year. They were 3rd in yards per game. I feel very good about the Buccaneers offense as a whole, more so honestly than the Chiefs, player for player, pound for pound, despite obviously Mahomes being better than Baker Mayfield. But as an entire offensive unit, I feel better about the Bucs offense than I do the Chiefs offense. And look, Baker could be even better than he was last year. You never know. The Rams. I think this offense is going to be cooking this year. I think it's going to be really damn good. You've got Stafford and McVay. That's one of the strongest quarterback head coach duos in the league, which really drives offenses fundamentally. Stafford, I think, is so underrated. He's still a top quarterback in the league, even at 37 years old. McVay's got a fantastic offensive system. He's got his own offensive coaching tree now, and it's a big tree at that. Wide receivers, you got Puka Nacua, the 7th best wide receiver in the league by my money. Great wide receiver, elite offensive fit. He can block, he can catch, he can run after the catch, he can separate, does it all, and is asked to do it all. And then you have this amazing complement now with Devontae Adams, who, is getting on in age, but he wins by separating, by elite route running, by understanding defenses and how to set up defenders. And that will still translate. Will he be as good as he was 5 years ago? No, of course not. But I don't think he will be much worse, honestly, for what it's worth. So those two are great wide receiver duos. And then they added Terrence Ferguson in the draft. They drafted him highly. Look out for him. They got Kyren Williams at running back. For me, the Rams tick every box. Coaching, tick. Scheme, tick. Quarterback, tick. Weapons, tick. Offensive line, tick. It has to go in elite. And I think I feel better about the Rams than offense than I do about the Bills offense. It's taking shape, guys. The Giants. It's not looking good for the Giants. Brian Daboll is a dead man walking, and that means he is primed to make some bad personnel decisions. The quarterbacks they have on the roster at the moment are Russell Wilson, who was good, now I would argue no longer. He plays like he's 26, trying to kind of escape out the back door of pockets and outrun NFL-level defenders, when he's actually 36, so he can't actually do that anymore. I'm not sure he can really play well enough in a not great offense generally to hold off the shouts for benching him. Then you got Jameis, who's fun. We all love Jameis, but if he starts, it's over. And then you got Jackson Dart, who is the first round rookie, and it has traditionally been proven to be very hard to stave off calls in the media, from fans, internally in the building, to start the young rookie quarterback if things aren't going well. And I don't think it is going to go very well in New York. So I think there are going to be lots of calls to do that. And if he does start, it's going to be a disaster because he's not ready. Coming from Ole Miss, it's going to be like drinking through a fire hose. The wide receivers, as I said, aren't great. Yes, Malik Neighbors is there. Yes, he's already a fantastic wide receiver. He is so damn good. Him and Brian Thomas Jr. are the next generation of elite wide receivers. But it is just him. And we've seen his offensive output decrease when defenses realize all they've got to do is double in some way, safety over the top, cornerback underneath, let's say Malik Neighbors. Because after that, it's Wan'Dale Robinson, who's not ever done much, and Darius Slayton, who, look, he's a nice wide receiver 3, but he's not enough to make defenses scared and take their attention away from Malik Neighbors. And then their running backs are fine, Tyrone Tracy, Cam Scatterboo, but it's the offensive line, which really I'm most concerned about unit-wise. After the quarterback, that is. And that's because if Andrew Thomas isn't healthy, which is very likely, this offensive line is outright bad. And that's going to be bad for all of the quarterbacks they have on the roster. So I can see Dart playing and making a bad offensive situation worse. There's just not enough talent, not strong enough coaching to kind of make that talent better or not put that talent in a bad situation. I mean, Neighbors, I would almost like to put them in concerning, but because I think Russ could play okay. I just think it's more likely that he doesn't. Neighbors is good, though. I like Scatterboo. If Andrew Thomas does play, the offensive line could be okay. I'll leave them at the back end of concerning. The Packers. Great offensive system with Matt LaFleur. They had Malik Willis looking like a good NFL quarterback. Malik Willis was looking like a good NFL quarterback for them last year in this system. And again, a bit like the Broncos, system is king in Green Bay. The wide receivers are fine. I think as a unit, they're greater than the sum of their parts. They've obviously added Matthew Golden, who they hope will be a wide receiver 1, but I don't think he quite profiles like that. But anyway, they've added Golden now. Romeo Doubs is good. Jaden Reed is good. They're all just kind of good, the wide receivers. They are good. The strong offensive line is looking good as well. I'm slightly concerned that Jordan Morgan might be a starting left tackle, which, looking at the family night that the Packers had the other day, he was struggling when there was no motion and no play action. So something to keep an eye on there. But at the moment, on paper, it's good. At running back, Josh Jacobs, he was elite. Again, in a great system, as a good talent, he made the most of it. Run game was fantastic. And at tight end, they got Tucker Kraft. And I'm expecting big things from Tucker Kraft this year. It really comes down to Jordan Love. Can he be the high-level version of Jordan Love, or is he going to be the Jameis Winston version of Jordan Love? Every single play, Jordan Love has that angel and devil on his shoulder. The devil's saying, throw it, you can make it, you got the arm. And he does. But he puts the ball in harm's way. And you can see the offense reflect that. The Packers run the ball very often on 1st and 10 in kind of in situations where most offense would elect to pass, they elect to run. And I feel like it's because they don't really trust Jordan Love to not turn the ball over. So he's been inconsistent. That does kind of limit the offense in my mind. I think on the whole, it is definitely great. But I think kind of near where the Bears are, I like the coaching, I like the talent around him. It's a quarterback question, but I feel like we've seen more from, what's his name? Why have I blanked on his name? We've seen more from Jordan Love, than we have from Caleb Williams. So I feel like it's fair to put him ahead of the Bears. The Seahawks, they've had a very interesting offseason offensively. They have a new offensive coordinator in Clint Kubiak, who's running a Shanahan-style system. So he loves those kind of deep crossers, everything like that. And that kind of explains why they got rid of DK Metcalf. I think he's more of a vertical threat, not really kind of used to running or kind of equipped to running those more in-breaking routes. And that's why they brought in Cooper Kupp to pair with JSN, two receivers that can definitely do that. Even though I think they are now lacking an extra dimension to their wide receiver room in a vertical threat. Sam Darnold has replaced Geno Smith. I think that's a slight downgrade in my books. Darnold, I think there's a better fit for Kubiak, so it kind of balances itself back out there. We'll call it a sideways move. But he is more susceptible to interior offensive line pressure, and this is my concern, is that the Seahawks offensive line is still not great. I don't really trust the center. I don't really trust the right guard. I don't really trust the right tackle. That, I think, could be an issue and a potential undoing of the offense. I love the running backs. I love Elijah Arroyo. They could be very exciting. But there's some questions I would like answered first. And I think they kind of have to go with the offensive line concerns guys. And I feel out of the Lions, Texans, and the Seahawks, I feel like the Seahawks are at the bottom of that little trio there. The Saints, not a lot to be excited about here. I think I feel pretty confident putting them as the 32nd best offense in the league, really. They have a second-round rookie in Tyler Shook, who hasn't looked great in camp from what I can tell. I liked him in the draft, but not as a round 2 guy, more as a kind of 3rd, 4th, 5th round flyer. The weapons, you've got Chris Olave, you've got Alvin Kamara. Kamara is good, but getting older. Olave is good, but has serious injury concerns. The offensive line is good, but the offensive line alone is not enough to win you games. Your quarterback play is not good. So they've got Kellen Moore as the new head coach. I trust him ultimately, but I just think this isn't going to be the year, guys. The Commanders. This offense, I think, is primed for a little bit of regression, and the team generally. I was wrong about Jaden Daniels. Okay, I was wrong. I had my pre-draft evaluation of him all wrong. He was just insane as a quarterback. Rightly won Offensive Rookie of the Year. So good on the ground, so good in the air. He's already maybe a top 3 fade thrower from the quarterback position in the league. I was also wrong about Cliff Kingsbury. There was no Cliff. His offense didn't fall off a cliff in terms of EPA per play, in terms of production. And they almost went to the Super Bowl. They ran into the Eagles, unfortunately, and they're obviously a better team. But the offense needed to improve a bit more, I think. They kind of almost outkicked their coverage by being such a good team and picking later in the draft, because I feel like I do love Terry McLaurin, but I'm not sold on Deebo Samuel. The offensive line has improved, but it's still not as good as I think it should be. And it's kind of like Jaden Daniels still has quite a wide range of outcomes. We've seen that from, my quarterbacks in CJ Stroud and Jordan Love. They've looked great at times as well. CJ Stroud was Offensive Rookie of the Year himself. So we've seen that happen. And I think that is kind of prime for the Commanders when you look at the fact they won 9 one-score games last year. And I don't think they got that much better as a team, offensively at least. They were 5th in yards per game. They were 6th in points per play. They were 4th in EPA per play. They clearly have a good offense just as a baseline. I just don't know if it will be as great as it was last year. So I will put them also... I'll put them at the back end of great. Around the Vikings, yeah, I think that's fair. I think they are going to be great, but just at the back end of that. Penultimate team here, the Dolphins. It's do or die now for the Dolphins at this point. And Mike McDaniel, that is. They have a great offensive mind in Mike McDaniel. I just don't know about great head coach anymore. They're just too one-dimensional. They went for the speed thing, they overdid it, and now they're trying to kind of pivot away to being a bit more physical, drafting Ollie Gordon, signing Nick Westbrook-Akine. Problem is, though, is that we know what we've got with Tua, who I don't think is bad. I just don't think he's good enough. He's very injury prone. That could completely derail your season. I think Tyreek Hill, despite being a bit older and maybe losing a step, that's not really my biggest concern. I think he could just quit on the team. We've already seen him do some pretty crazy, traditionally wide receiver 1 kind of stuff, right, this offseason. I could see a world whereby he just quits on the team and is a non-factor. I don't think then Jalen Waddle is enough by himself without Tyreek Hill. We've seen the wheels just fall off this offense too many times in too many different ways, and all of those ways can still happen this year. They can beat the bad defenses, but they can't really beat the good ones. They were 22nd in offensive EPA per play last year. I might be harsh here with the Dolphins, but I have concerns around them. Less so than the others in that tier, but definitely still concerns. And finally, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars. You got Brian Thomas Jr., you got Travis Hunter, you've got Liam Cohen, you got Trevor Lawrence. It could be unreal, right? One of those four is not like the others, and that is obviously Trevor Lawrence there. But focusing on Brian Thomas Jr. first, he was incredible. He is this new generation of elite wide receivers, I think. He was unbelievable last year. Devoured man coverage, so big, so strong, just amazing. Travis Hunter, he could be a wide receiver one in his own right, but now won't need to because he can be that underneath, that shifty guy, great compliment to Brian Thomas Jr. as an over-the-top, deeper threat. Offensive line is a bit questionable. The tight end and running back situation is bad, I would say. Your starting tight end is Brenton Strange, and your starting running back is Travis Etienne. Don't think either of those guys are suited to be starters in the NFL. And then it kind of depends really on how much can Liam Cohen do with Trevor Lawrence, really. I've been a pretty vocal Trevor Lawrence defender, but it's getting to the point now where he needs to do something to show that he's more than just a fine, good, okay NFL quarterback. This kind of has to be the year. I have some concerns, but I will put them at the back end of good. So, to finish then, our top 10 offenses in the NFL are Ravens at 1, 49ers at 2, Eagles at 3, Rams at 4, Bills at 5, Bucks at 6, Chiefs at 7, Packers at 8, Bears at 9, and Raiders at 10. Bears at 9, man. That's bold. I actually would like the Patriots a bit higher than where I left them, I think, ultimately. But looking at the teams in front of them, I don't think I can really move them up that much. Cardinals, I was maybe a little bit too positive on. Maybe I was a bit too positive on the Cardinals. But I do like Kyler Murray. I do like the weapons. I'm going to leave the Cardinals there. And then our bottom 5 offenses are the Giants, the Steelers, the Titans, the Jets, the Browns, and the Saints. That was 6. I can't count. But anyway, do you agree or disagree with any of the rankings I've put here? Let me know in the comments. Remember, leave a like if you've got this far. Do subscribe for more NFL content. But I've been your host, Dom Corbs. This has been Corbs NFL. I'll see you on the next video.